For those of you that missed last week's video on the Ruger No1 here in 303 British, we've got three small problems going with this rifle right now. The accuracy is horrible, the velocities are all over the place, and I'm struggling to shoot this rifle accurately. Three small issues. Okay, but after all the testing we've done recently, that went over last time, the results we saw, I think we finally got this rifle figured out. I think all three of those things are related, and today we're going to find out if I'm right or not. My current theory on the Ruger No1 here in 303 British, again, for those of you that missed the last video on this adventure, I think the bore is running slightly oversized. After doing research on this, it turns out the No1s in 303 are famous for the bores measuring 315 to 316 thousandths of an inch instead of the standard 311 thousandths of an inch for a 303. Okay, well, we were doing our load testing with 150 grain Speer hot core bullets, 303 caliber. Speer's bullets measure the standard 311 thousandths of an inch. Okay, I think we were having a lot of pressure issues, losing pressure, because of the difference between the Speer bullets measuring what they should be versus this bore being slightly oversized. All right, so today we're going to try the Hornady 150 grain bullets. I just received a late shipment. We're going to step tonight. We're going to load these up because the Hornady bullets in 303 caliber measure 312 thousandths of an inch. Okay, I think the extra 1 thousandths of an inch, with that, we're going to see a noticeable improvement. And we're going to do the exact same load, same powder, same primer, same brass, same everything. We're just going to swap the bullet and see if we don't get an improvement. And just because I'm really ready to get this rifle nailed down, I noticed while I was at Midway, they also had Hornady 175 grain bullets, round nose. This rifle, when I very first range trip with it, I just carried factory ammo, Federal Blue Box standard ammunition, 180 grain. I'm almost certain those bullets were 311 thousandths of an inch, but we still got good accuracy. I think it's because of the larger bearing surface on the longer 180 grain bullets versus 150s. Okay, if these 150s don't shoot, I'm very confident that these 175s will. All right, and now I'm fixing to get to work and get to loading. It's going to be a late night tonight, but I'm just itching to know, and we're going to be at the range first thing in the morning. I got our ammo loaded up last night, and now I've got everything set up and ready to go here. We're ready for testing, and we've got just an absolutely gorgeous morning for it. Problem is, it's not going to stay gorgeous for long. It's supposed to get rather breezy today, so let's get this shooting while we can, and at least we'll know wind's not a factor in this. We're starting with the 150 grain Hornady using varget powder just like we talked about. And what we're really interested in is to see how this compares to the 150 grain Speer bullets that are 1,000ths of an inch less in diameter. And I know 1,000ths isn't much, but I think it's going to be enough that we actually see a difference in our velocity, consistencies, accuracy, everything. And I know how we can find out. Okay, I went down and I checked the target, and the GoPro was malfunctioning, which seems to be par for the course with it here lately. So I'm pretty sure it didn't catch any of that on camera. But our first two shots were in the same hole. And I could see that through the scope. And I was thinking, hey, we're onto something here. But then our velocities picked up on the third and fourth shots, and our point of impact went up just like we've been seeing. And I'm convinced more than ever it's a bore issue. We fire a cold bore shot, then the bore heats up. Maybe it heats up enough to affect the second shot, maybe not, but then it really opens up by the time we get to that third shot. And A common misconception a lot of people have, when metal heats up, it expands. A lot of people think that the outside diameter gets bigger because of it expanding, but they think the inside diameter gets smaller because the metal's expanding. No, the inside diameter gets bigger also. Okay, so if we've got a slightly oversized bore, it's steadily getting bigger. All right, that's going to change things. If we're losing too much pressure, it causes us to lose more pressure, then we're going to see a drop in the velocity and our point of impact, just like we saw with the accurate powders, whereas it seems to be doing the opposite with the Varget. It seems to be, as it gets bigger, it's, I guess, less friction, and we're seeing faster velocities. I can't tell you why one powder's different than the other, but that's what we're seeing for whatever reason. Okay, so we're going to continue on with the load testing here. Maybe as we get up higher in powder charges, maybe it gets a little more consistent. Let's find out. Okay, I was just contemplating what we've seen thus far while I was waiting on this barrel to cool, and I didn't write down the velocities for the first shot for the first two groups. Okay, now I could make up a number here and make it look like I know what I'm talking about. In the interest of honesty here, I didn't write them down. Okay, but if I'm not mistaken, and I'll know for sure when I go back and look at the footage, the cold bore shot, the point of impact for the cold bore shot is almost the exact same spot for all three of the groups we fired thus far. Okay, then as the bore heats up, the shots are climbing. Okay, now what was interesting on that last group, that very last shot, it didn't go up in velocity like the rest had been. It actually dropped a lot in velocity. So we went from 2,660 feet per second on the third shot to 2,604 feet per second on the fourth shot. All right, which our velocities obviously aren't stable, and we're going to have to make changes, but still, just with what we're seeing. I don't know if the fourth shot hit high also and was touching the third shot, or if that was the second shot touching the third one and the fourth dropped back down. I'll know when I look at the footage, but that'll be interesting to see. Is there a correlation here between the height of the point of impact and the velocity? I guess that's what I'm wondering. And part of why I'm wondering this is because if there isn't, and that fourth shot was just high, maybe we're stringing. Maybe as the barrel heats up, you know, we've got a little stringing going on here, touching the forearm, shots rising. I don't know, I'm just throwing out some ideas at this point while we're waiting on this to cool. But we've got two more 4-shot groups for this load. And hopefully we're going to see something stabilized by the end of this. Well, I think the 312 thousandths of an inch diameter bullets were an improvement over the 311 thousandths of an inch diameter bullets, but honestly, I'm not sure. That's still obviously not it. I'm gonna have to go back and look at some footage. That last group was not horrible. Still a lot more variation in velocity than I'd like to see though. And I guess that's the part that's getting me with this, is just the variation in velocity. And some of these weren't, well, I guess they were all pretty bad. But anyway, that's why we loaded up some of the 175 grain bullets. We've got 3 shot groups here that we're going to try real quick, just to see if that longer bearing surface stabilizes our velocity and our accuracy, our point of impact. So let's get to testing with this and see what we've got. And we're going to start off with just a 3 shot group, and then the other 2 will be 4 shot groups. And we are done here. Now we'll meet up at the shop in just a minute and see what we've got. Well, that was a little discouraging. Okay, besides being a little disappointing there, also it turns out that was a very good range trip. I mean, a very good one. All right, so let's get the bad out of the way to start with. The Hornady bullets did not help us. They didn't improve our variation in velocity, didn't improve our accuracy. They did give us, on average, an extra 50 feet per second per powder charge. So there is that. And I was really surprised the 175s didn't help either. Oh well. Now for the good. Okay, and the first ray of sunshine in the darkness that has become this rifle. Our cold bore shot on those first 3 powder charges. Okay, that was impressive. If I'd have been firing all of those at the same target, same bullseye, that shot group would have been under ½ inch with different powder charges. Okay, so the rifle is showing some serious accuracy potential here. All right, the next good thing out of this one, I mentioned while we were out there, I wondered if there was a correlation between the variation, vertical variation in our point of impact and the variation in velocity. Okay, well, that range trip was actually well over a week ago now. So I've had time since then to go through and really crunch all of the numbers and go through the data, and it turns out there was a very strong correlation between the velocity and the vertical point of impact. And for those of you that are into statistics, the correlation coefficient was 0.78. And for those of you that aren't into statistics, that's just a way of comparing 2 sets of data to see if there's a correlation. And a perfect correlation would be a 1. Right, so a change in the data on this side by however much equals however much of a change in this side, and it's consistent through the set. All right, there's almost never a 1 when we're actually testing this stuff. But so correlation coefficient, it's grouped into ranges, and 0.721 is considered a very strong correlation. Okay. Well, then I went through our past results, range trips, and took the very best results we had, which was when we tried the lead sled with IMR 4064, did the load testing with it. Then I calculated the correlation coefficient for that data, and it was an even stronger correlation. It was 0.92 or 93, something like that. All right, well, that was interesting then. And I took both sets of data, put them in a graph, dropped in trend lines, and the trend lines matched perfectly. The velocities were higher for the IMR 4064 because we were testing higher pressure loads then. But the slope of the trend lines were the same. Okay, now what does all of that mean? Okay, I had assumed that we were getting better shot groups off the lead sled because we were shooting off the lead sled. It took me out of the equation, and I've said many times, this rifle's right on the ragged edge of me being able to shoot it accurately. Okay, it turns out I was mistaken there. The lead sled's not what improved our accuracy. What improved our accuracy was we didn't have nearly as much variation in velocity between shots. If we had taken the loads we had today, with all of the variation in velocity from shot to shot, we had tested those off of the lead sled, we would have seen the same vertical variation in our point of impact. Okay, and part of what makes this so difficult, dialing in a rifle, getting it to shoot, is this is a multivariable experiment. And those are absolutely the most difficult experiments to undertake because there are so many variables going on at the exact same time. Right, we know what the variation in velocity does for our point of impact. It's not good. Well, we're still trying different powder charges. One powder charge is going to be more accurate than the rest. So we're getting variation from our powder charges. We're getting variation from this bore heating up and touching the forearm. Variation from me shooting. There's tons of variation here, and it's all occurring at the exact same time, and that can make it so difficult to figure out, okay, where's our problem? Or maybe we've got multiple problems. Well, what we just did is we just isolated the primary variable that's giving us the most grief at the moment. It's our variation in velocity. And I've since went out and pretty much confirmed it. I loaded up IMR 4064, tried to squeeze in a really late range trip one evening, and I only got in 2 shot groups. But those 2 shot groups matched what we had shooting off the lead sled, and our velocities were extremely consistent. Okay, so pretty good stuff there. And I didn't show it just because I only got the 2 shot groups in, but we're going to go back and we're going to verify that and do the whole testing. But anyway, so that was very interesting and good information there. Now, there's still the question of why are we getting so much variation vertically with the change in muzzle velocity or change in velocity? And a lot of you already figured that out. Quite a few of you mentioned that when I'm shooting, I'm getting a lot of muzzle jump. Okay, well, the harder the recoil, the more the muzzle's going to jump. The higher the velocity, the more the muzzle's going to jump. Okay. And several of you suggested that I hold the forend while I'm shooting off the bench. And quite several of you suggested I do what Randy Shelby, the real gunsmith, said, and rest my left arm on the scope. Just let it hang there to keep from getting so much muzzle jump. Okay, I'm sure that would help. I'm sure that would improve our variation, our vertical variation that we're seeing with the change in velocity. Okay, but the problem, at least for me and my thinking, we're developing a hunting load here. I've got to be able to shoot this in the field accurately while I'm hunting. Right, so I'm not going to be able to hold the forend down while we're out hunting. I mean, I have to support the forend. I'm not going to be able to, more than likely, I'm not going to be able to rest my left arm up here. Okay, so I think it's important when we're developing a hunting load to develop a load that we can shoot from the bench. And if you notice, I haven't used the lead sled since that first load testing we tried with this. And there's 2 reasons for that. Well, the first one's, so many of you commented that you had busted and broken stocks using a lead sled with single shot rifles. I was surprised by how many commented on that, both Ruger #1s and Thompsons. So I think single shots just transfer more energy to the butt plate and to the shoulder, just due to the nature of the rifle. Bolt action rifle. When we fire a bolt action, okay, energy is transferred from the action via the recoil lug to the stock, and then through the wood down both sides of the stock, and then eventually to the butt of the stock. I think all of that acts a little bit like a shock absorber, basically. Or it absorbs some of the energy. There's no absorption with this. It's all, you feel it, and it's, okay, so that both makes it more felt recoil and a little more difficult to shoot. Second reason I haven't used lead sled against, what I said about not holding it down. I've got to develop a load here I can shoot in the field hunting. Okay, and again, that's just my thinking, but the great advantage to developing a custom load for a rifle is that it is a custom load for our specific rifle that we can shoot accurately in the field hunting. All right, so if recoil's a problem, we can develop a load that doesn't have as much recoil. All right, and there's two ways to control felt recoil in a rifle, and that's with the load we're using. Second way is with the setup, and we're going to talk more about that later on, but for right now we're just focused on the load. Okay, so we tried the IMR 4064 powder way back when first got the rifle. Even with the lead sled, I needed, I'm not going to enjoy shooting that. So that's in part why I've been trying so many other powders and experimenting. I'm trying to find something that I still get good velocity, but it's a little softer shooting. Okay, and then that turned into, well, let's just try to get this rifle to shoot. But, well, with our cartridges, some powders have more felt recoil than other powders. Some bullets have more felt recoil than others. Sometimes heavier bullets have more felt recoil. Sometimes they have less because we use slower burning powders with them oftentimes. The loads make a difference in felt recoil. Okay, and some are just more efficient than others, and I was trying to find a really efficient load that gave us a softer shooting load with good velocity and accuracy. Okay, and again, now we're just trying to, hey, let's get it to shoot. All right, and what we can't control with our load development, we can control with the setup. All right, so adding a thicker recoil pad, adding a little weight to the rifle. There's things we can do, but I like to try to develop the load first and then get that nailed down, and then, okay, whatever I can't control with it, make adjustments if need be with the setup. Okay, so yeah, that's why I went around the world trying different loads just to get back to where we started. And this little rifle is beating the snot out of me out there. Let me throw that in. I mean, it doesn't hurt. I mean, the recoil's manageable, but just to put this in perspective, I was load testing the 1903 A3 while we were out there also. Spoiler alert, guess what the next series might be. But anyway, I was looking forward to putting this rifle down after a shot group and going back to the 30-06 so I could get a break from this one. It's snappy, let's put it that way. Okay, so yeah, holding my arm up here and all that, I'm sure it would help with the muzzle flip, but just finding the powder that doesn't have as much variation between shots, that's going to improve our accuracy greatly right there. We're still going to get muzzle flip, but it's going to be consistent, so we're going to be pretty accurate for our shots. Okay, so now, and that's why I'm being so hard-headed about how I shoot off the bench and not wanting to use the lead sled and all of that. Okay, now the other question we've got remaining is this bore. Okay, I think we're going to just hold off. We're going to end right here with this one. We're going to go in depth on the bore next time, starting with slugging the barrel, because we've still got questions here, and A lot of you said, first thing I need to do is slug this barrel, and I agree. We need to see exactly what we've got here. Plus, I've learned a lot of really interesting things about 303 British bores since then. So, all right, we'll go over that next time. God bless and have a great day.